Coach Rob on this Sunday. How you doing, my man?
Hey, good evening, brother. Always good to see you, man. Sometimes it feels like it's been 3 weeks, and sometimes it feels like it's been 3 minutes, but it's always good to catch up.
Right on. Yeah. Well, I guess you're in Vermont.
Yep, we're actually up here. Do you remember the old Winchester Motocross Park with the good old GPs and everything else with Hannah DeCoster? It was one of the big races on the national stop, but it's changed hands a couple times. And we were asked about 6 months ago. We have a client, you know him, Devin O'Leary. He is in this area. Him and his dad helped us out. Deb, who her and her husband own the facility, they asked us if we'd come up and do a camp. And hey, you know how things happen. We were going to do small bikes on Thursday, Friday before Southwick because we were supposed to be at Southwick this weekend. Southwick National on Saturday, and then big bikes on Monday, Tuesday. So we consolidated them because a lot of people decided, hey, if there's no Southwick, making the trip, it's a long way to just only come in for 2 days worth of a performance camp. So we're sold out, which I'm thankful for, but we are combining both small bikes and big bikes. Never been up into the Northeast. So Michaela and I have been doing 2 days of running as much as we can in the elevation of Vermont. And as you can tell by the background, we're sitting on a piece of acreage that's about 25 acres and just absolutely peaceful. And we're sleeping here with the windows open and life is good.
Well, Vermont, isn't there theory like Vermont is for lovers or something?
Hey, there you go. Well, we're still honeymooners, right? We've only been married for 3
Yeah.
months, but no, it's funny. Along that thread of thought, Michaela and I, we wear our Garmin's all the time. Our resting heart rate is almost 7 beats less than what it is at home. And the only, I mean, we're still training the same volume, but I'm telling you, man, it's this outside. It's almost like you can taste the oxygen in the air when you're in the environment like this with the trees. And we ran a 6 mile trail today that literally, all tree canopied. And it was, I mean, just the breathing, even though we're a couple thousand feet above sea level, being from Florida, it's just so much more enjoyable to have a high levels of oxygen. Our resting heart rate's extremely low, so it's pretty cool. Did you
That's
uh, did you get did you get a chance to get into the water park for last
we
weekend?
we did. Oh my God. It was brutal, dude. I took a beating. I might as well have been on the show Wipeout. I ate it. Like I said, those things are not ideal for anyone over 200 pounds.
Yeah,
And those airbags that are on water that, Isla can just run across because she's like, 75, 80 pounds soaking wet. I'm not as much running across those things, but we brought Noah and then Noah's making it was a blast. We had a great time. We rented paddle boards before that, paddled around. We just had a good old time. It was one hell of a Father's Day. I enjoyed. So,
good.
hey, we had some interesting news drop this week. Your buddy, my buddy, Steve Mathis, not really, I'm not buddies with the guy, but he did break this news. And it's interesting if it's true that Yamaha is going to match the right of first refusal on Aaron Plessinger joining the KTM team. What do you think about that, Coach?
I reached out to a couple agents and I was told that it's already a done deal, that he's already at KTM. Now, again, I'm not an agent, I'm not an attorney. I don't know how those timelines work. I don't know how the contracts work. Based on what I can ascertain, I think until that last day of the contract literally expires, I think that option is always there. I guess my question would be, and it sounds like he would be willing to go that route. If we look at the timeline of the way a contract would work, if the company that they're leaving has first right of refusal, matches that, I still think it would be up to the rider. I don't know, maybe you can clarify that a little bit more definitively.
No, the way I understood it, and I'm not a contract expert, so somebody could probably correct me if they had to, but the way I understood it is so I signed the contract and I've signed with Yamaha. They have first right of refusal. I can go out and get a deal, any deal I want, and they have the right to match it and keep me. And I don't have a choice at that point. Once they match it, then I have to stay back with Yamaha. That's their right. Nobody really ever exercises it because you don't still want to be there. This is a strange scenario, though, where we've been joking like, you got buyer's remorse. Did you sign the wrong contract? Maybe
Yeah.
AP went and said, hey, can you please match this?
Yeah.
you know,
That would be the direction that I would ask as well, because we'd heard some scuttlebutt behind the scenes. I've heard that Cooper Webb wants to go back to Yamaha. I heard that Plessinger wanted to go back to Yamaha, and obviously with them still having the clause, no pun intended, into Plessinger, it sounds like he may be staying there. I guess that brings up a completely different dynamic of questions. Who goes to KTM now? Because
Well, Marv looks pretty good right now because he hasn't, as far as I know, he has not signed the contract that they gave him.
right.
I'm guessing he's going to go ahead and say, yeah, I'm going to need a bigger deal.
Yeah, you can't blame him, right? I mean,
No.
and I hope the listeners understand how much fun this is, but yet how frustrating it is. Like we talked about, look at J Mart. J Mart was supposed to be going into being the next 450 rider next to Roxon, gets hurt running into Cooper. That contract evaporates. Now all of a sudden you have Marv, who 3 months ago he's pretty much taken sloppy seconds, scraps off the table, maybe even getting moved over to Gas. Hey, they're going to give him a 1-year deal. That's all great. Now all of a sudden Plessinger wants to run back to Yamaha. Like you said, changes the negotiation table for Marv. Now all of a sudden you've got Coop and you've got Marv there. It could be very, very interesting dynamic. And not to add more drama to the situation, does Husky now decide to keep Dean Wilson? Because we don't know if Osborne's going to be able to race or not. They were going to let Dean go. Let's say Osborne can't race and Dean goes. Now you've got 2 openings at the 450 level. Does Colt Nichols jump over to a 250? Because he's going to point out this is next year in Supercross. This is his only year that he can race Supercross. Does he go for a cheap amount of money to Husky on a 250 contract going to 450? That'd be 2 years away. But who goes 450 next year for Husky? Assuming, maybe it's not a right assumption, but what if Osborne could not race? Who's the other 450 rider at Husky?
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, we don't know for sure that Plessinger wants to go back to Yamaha. I just assumed he probably would.
Well, I've heard it from 6 different people, both agents as well as people that are in the know, that said he has been wanting to go back halfway through. I say halfway through, we're not even halfway through the summer, but obviously he's very comfortable with the new Star Dynamics. He's obviously comfortable with the new 450. The fact that we're hearing that Cooper wants to go back to Yamaha, that says a lot, as we teased about 2 shows ago when Cooper couldn't win on it. James couldn't win on it. I mean, the list goes, Barsha couldn't win on it. The list goes on and on. And hey, high five, knuckle punch, back to Star. They have created the ultimate paradigm shift that we all said they'll either be heroes or zeros. I don't know who's at, and we said this in the last show. I don't know who's at the helm of making this dynamic change. I don't give Bobby Reagan all the credit. He's obviously the director of it, which is cool. But you and I both know there's a lot of guys putting in the sweat equity behind the scenes that's making that program so killer. And boy, what a paradigm shift. I was talking with one of the agents and I said, what a difference a year makes when everybody wanted to get away from Yamaha. And it was, if you could go nowhere else, you went to Yamaha. Now the lion's share wants to go there as the place to be. Hey, you got to give credit where credit's due.
Well, do you remember when we were both on Main Event Moto and I was actually arguing with Daniel about the Suzuki and Yamaha and which one's better? That was actually a debate we had. Like, kind of, I'm like, no, come on, man. The Yamahas are good. So, but they clearly weren't getting the results. It's just that extra couple percentage. But the thought that I had is Jeremy Martin. So Jeremy Martin doesn't have a ride next year. He hasn't signed yet, is what I understand, right?
Right. You're correct.
How great would it work out for KTM if they offered him a 1-year contract, let him get in there and prove it? A little guy on the KTM, that might work, man.
Well, that was where I was kind of alluding to without directly saying it. To me, Husqvarna offering J-Mart a ride, because you've got 2 really good guys at Star that are available, J-Mart and Nichols. You've got one that's a defending champion. You've got one that's a previous champion. And again, you've got 2 guys that their contracts are going to be up.
I would just move J-Mart right into the 450 class. I wouldn't even waste 1 year going after another 250 title. I would just directly put him right in the 450 class in 22 and see what he's got. Because you're going to have 1 year before there's probably going to be some other guy that they're going to bid a lot of money for. But let's find out what we got right here. Maybe we got him because he's not exactly young.
No, I couldn't concur with you any better, because he's ridden that 450. He showed us at Daytona. Every chance he's been on the 450, he's looked very, very good. Whether they're chopping the subframe down like they did for RC or whatever they're doing, the boy can ride a 450. That's what I said earlier. It's kind of, again, beating around the bush a little bit. But hey, if they don't retain Dean Wilson, you've got an opening right there. I'm not saying Dean and J Mart are in the same pay scale. I would assume J Mart would be a little bit more expensive, but nonetheless, not to sound like we're contradicting ourselves, where else would Husky go except to Colt Nichols or J Mart? And I think J Mart's got the nod at this point. I mean, how do you argue against him?
Well, health. You say a guy that hasn't made it through the last couple seasons on a 250. Now you're going to move him up to a longer season in the 450. I see there might be some hesitation, but if you can get Marv to come on, and you were planning on a 3-man team before, why not just add him? It seems to me very low risk, very high reward. I don't think he's going to cost much more than a Dean Wilson, because it's not like he has a ton of bargaining power right now. I mean, he just doesn't.
Well,
And then Dean Wilson, he's just came out with Epstein-Barr virus. I'm sorry, that could not have been worse timing as far as contracts go.
when did he announce that? I haven't seen that.
He put that out on Instagram, I believe, this week. Let's see what the
Oh,
date says on
I did
here.
not see that. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
kiss to death, like you said, especially when you have somebody like a team owner like Mitch Payton that says, hey, look, I've got a rider that's been diagnosed with EBV. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Shimoda. You don't think that those big corporate teams are looking at the same thing. You've got a 450 rider that declares he's got EBV. I didn't hear that. That's literally news to me. But boy, that really puts an axe in the equation. Here's the crazy part. I was talking to one of the agents this week, and Forkner's already re-signed with Kawasaki.
Wait, what?
Yep.
Forkner for how long?
I don't know the duration of it, but I heard that it's a done deal. So here's my point. When you're looking at Jeremy Martin, he's got an injury trail that follows him. Forkner, he's got almost an identical injury trail that goes with him. The difference is, to your point, J Mart's proved that he can go on a 450 ride and do quite well. Austin's never even had a chance to be able to do that. So my point being is, obviously he's going to be staying at Cowie on the 250 for 1, maybe even 2 years. So to me, J Mart is the ultimate kingpin in this, because if if Plessinger goes back to Yamaha, like you said, you've got a 3-man deal. He can go to KTM, fantastic program inside and out. You can go to the ancillary, same color, same team, different color. Go to Husky, no harm done there at all. It's not like Anderson's bike was a dog. It's a win-win for J Mart, I think.
Well, and now you saying that about Forkner, that still looks to me like Kawasaki is probably, they haven't given up on the Forkner project, and they probably still want him to go into the 450 class. They're just hoping Anderson can keep it warm for a couple of years.
I would agree. And you've also got to remember, Forkner has a really good agent behind him, very deep roots back over to Mitch. So I'm sure that plays a large role in that, because his agent's very good at, setting the stage. Hey, let's kind of zoom out. Let's look at the bigger picture. So let's see what happens with that. But I think it'll be very interesting, because did you see Myrtle? He didn't put anything down on it, but did you see Myrtle with Shimoda signing a contract?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, he had put that up there. I want to say it was there earlier in the week, maybe even last week, and he didn't allude to any contract signed. Didn't even say what color, whatever. Just showed Shimoda signing a contract. My point in bringing that up is, if we know Forkner's going back, I believe that Hammaker, I think he may have a second year, but based on the fact that he won one race and he's going to be renewed. Big question, of course, is, do they bring back Jordan Smith? And so you've got a pretty solid roster that could come back. But if they don't bring back Jordan Smith, who goes into that? Obviously Ryder D, or one of the up and coming amateurs, which is cool. But we go back to musical chairs, go back to Star Yamaha, because if J Mart vacates and goes to Husky or KTM, whichever one, like we were saying, who goes into that new? We know Thrasher's got a 2-year deal, so he's going to be there for sure. We know Christian Craig's got a 250, 450 deal. He's going to be back. I would imagine that they keep Coop. So there's 3 of the 4 guys. Where now you've got an opening.
Okay, I want them. And it's funny, I keep checking. I'm not being distracted for no reason, people. We got Jaleek Swoll, who said he was going to join us here in a little bit, and I'm just making sure he can get in on the Zoom call. But there's a guy, Jarrett Fry, on that team who's had very, very, we'll call him subpar, not good results in his rookie season, but they come around. Just like I was extremely hard on Jaleek Swoll, and the reason he's going to come on is I guess I wrote an article last year, and I was talking about the series and how it's broken, and how they bring in these rookies and they bump out veterans who deserve the ride. I essentially said he didn't deserve his ride. I don't think I said it word for word, but yeah, that's what I said. And now he's out there winning and making me look bad. But on the other side, I would like to see him give Jared Fry, give him another chance. You don't think so?
He's not being renewed.
No, but I'm saying if there's, See, and that's where I don't like it though. I
No,
want you to give these guys 3 years.
I totally agree with you. I think it's very, very hard for these guys to come out of the rookie, come out of amateurs and go right into the rookie side. Something that the listeners may not be aware of, but when you look at press day and you look at the opportunity, the teams can essentially pay to have the opportunity to ride on press day. And I want the listeners to really walk this through. If you have a couple of riders that are completely rookies, sincerely do not know anything about, let's say, 9 out of the 10 tracks, 8 out of the 10 tracks, and your team does not pay for press day, the first time you get to race that track is going to be practice just like everybody else. Now think about this.
Hold on. You said something I'd pay for press day.
That's the way I understand it, that the teams can pay to go to press day and they can ride. That's what I've heard through the grapevine. The point being is, what if, let's take Fry. Let's take Jaleek the first year he went up. Let's take Jordan Bailey the first year he went up. Let's take, fill in the blank, Seth Hammaker, Joe Shimoda, all of these 250 teams, right? If you're coming out of Loretta's, especially the way the schedule is now, and now you're being thrust into an outdoor national and there's no press day, literally you're bringing a fire-breathing, dragging factory bike to a track you've never ridden before, and you're trying to qualify, and people are like, oh my goodness, he should be so much higher. He's on a factory bike. I want the listeners to think about this. If you jumped in your truck and you drove 12 hours any direction from your house and you just showed up to a track, are you going to latch on to the fastest dudes at the track in your class? None of us would. We all know that the local guy is going to know that every inch of that track. Well, these pros, like to your point, whether it be Jaleek or whether it be Shimoda, Seth Hammaker, any of these guys that come up, sometimes, what do we always hear about? Hey, until you get one full year under your belt, you go to all the tracks and you understand the travel, you understand the dirt, you understand blah, 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 all the nuances, right?
The blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, but bless her, I mean, in all seriousness, think about what Jaleek has had to overcome. And now he's done it. And he's like, okay, I understand this track. I understand how incredibly downhill Glen Helen is. I understand how incredibly downhill you fill in the blank, all these different tracks. Well, isn't it, and not because you and I talked about it, isn't it interesting, to your point, now that Jaleek has had 2 full seasons I think he's been out there 2 complete seasons, right? Or will this be his second?
I believe this is his second season.
Okay. So now that he's gotten all the rust kicked off, he knows what to expect. Are we surprised as an industry? Are we surprised as fans that Jaleek is doing well? No, the dude rips. He's always gotten good starts. Even from his very first Supercross race, the guy rips the starts.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I was surprised that he did this good. Listen, I expect him to be on a factory bike. You should be top 10, getting in there in the top 5, maybe sniffing the podium. But for him to come out and win, my hell. No, if you pick that, I'd have to call you a liar, Rob.
No. I didn't pick it. Like we talked about in our preseason, I still have to go back to the amount of riders I've worked with that I've moved from the amateur ranks into pros. When you talk to them, it's not a fitness issue. It's not even getting acclimated to the traveling. It's learning the tracks, because the listeners need to understand, when you've got 42, 50, 55 guys out on the track and Blowout Bob is not there ruining every corner, the track is completely different. It's a completely different characteristic. So if you've gone and raced Redbud on amateur day, and then all of a sudden now you go there on pro day, it's a completely different track. So would I have said that Jaleek would have won a national in his second year? Absolutely not. But what I will give him credit for, and I say this to my clients every single week, if you can't figure out a way to get the starts and put yourself into the top of the mix early, you're going to always be a 20th through 40th place guy. Jaleek, his starts, he doesn't crumble under pressure. He's nailed his starts, Supercross and outdoors. And in this situation, one of the questions that I have is, it doesn't seem like, if you look at Hampshire was up there, you look up there that Jaleek was there, those bikes are giving those Star Yamahas some run for their money. Did they change the configuration? I don't think the Yamahas are getting slower all of a sudden.
No, and you know what? We're going to take a quick break. He's trying to get in, and I'm having typical technical issues like we always have, because that's our show, Rob. I always have technical issues. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to get Jaleek in here to tell us what's up. Okay, so we're back with Jaleek, and I love, because I did an Instagram post with him, and I I basically told him how awesome I thought it was that he won. It blew me away, surprised pretty much everybody. And he reminded me about an article I wrote. I wrote an article and I was very critical of whether he deserved the ride. Now, I didn't mean to go after you specifically, Jaleek. What I meant was the amateur system. But dude, you have every right to just call me a dumbass. So have at it. I'm going to sit back and just take it.
No, I mean, it's just, at the time, I think it's a little bullshit of media to just kind of not give people chances. I think like in the sport, like it's so cutthroat. Like you have, for me, it was like my rookie race was my worst race, and like I got destroyed for it. You know what I mean? And it was like one of those things where it was just like, I know that I deserve the ride and all these different things, but it's like nobody really in media, I feel like, takes the time to really like know backstories or just anything or what it takes to even get here. They just know when he gets here, if he doesn't do good, then you just talk shit. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things where like, I don't know, I seen the article and I mean, I read it, and I mean, for me personally, I don't really take anything to heart, but what I will say is I keep tabs on everybody who talks shit just for times like this, where it's like you do good and then everybody is all of a sudden on your side. You know what I mean? And like, that's one thing that I take, I don't know. I take joy in kind of talking shit back to the people who are like, taking jabs when I first came in the scene.
You got it. Hey, listen, you got it. That's probably about the 5th article I've done. And most of those articles, the theme is, I don't like to see rookie riders displace seasoned riders who haven't got 3 years or so to prove themselves. Like say the Jordan Baileys and some of these guys that I really think might have come around had they been given the opportunity. So I didn't mean, just so you know, I didn't mean to single you out personally. I think I wrote it right after you didn't qualify. So it just happened to be the guy who fit my argument the worst or the best.
Yeah.
Which now you really made me look stupid, because now you've come around and literally won a national. That's not even a Supercross. That's a national with everybody. Where did that come from?
It was, I mean, any rider feels like they can go out and do that, right? Like you dream about it, you work your ass off to get there. And like for me, I honestly just took it step by step. Like every finish or whatever it was, I'm just having fun. I'll get to where I want to be. I'll get to where I need to be, when the time comes. And then, so just that day, like just waking up in the morning to first time on the track and everything, like it was just different from all the other races that I've been to. It was just kind of like everything started to click and like just fall into place. Like practice came easy to me. Like I've never even been in that track. I didn't do track walk the day before or anything. Literally the first time I seen the track was the roll around lap, and everything was just clicking. Like everything was easy. I set my time that got me 5th in qualifying or whatever, like, I don't know, 2nd lap. Like everything was just pretty easy and like smooth sailing all day. And I mean, it was just, everything literally just fell into place and I felt comfortable and good to go. And I think it was just, that time, everything just clicked. I think everybody has their own, times on when they feel the best on the bike. And for me, it just happened to come round 3.
And I love that it's on Father's Day weekend. Back when I wrote that article, I didn't know your complete story. I mean, I watched you at Loretta's. I saw how fast you were, but I also saw I'm not gonna lie, there was like 17 people around you at Loretta's catering. And I have a hard time judging amateurs because some amateurs get really good equipment and some don't. But I didn't know your story about your dad. And when I heard that, I was extra sympathetic to you, because my dad actually did some very shady stuff off of a tool truck back in the day to keep me racing. And for me to see you win on Father's Day weekend, knowing he was doing stuff to keep you riding, I'm not going to lie, it touched a soft spot in my heart. And I was like, dang, that's pretty cool, man. So do you want to talk about that at all? I know you've got a thing coming up with Troy Adamitis, right?
Yeah, I have a big thing coming out with Troy. Hopefully we'll make it to these big streaming platforms that we're trying to get to. And I mean, I'm going to touch on a lot of it with him. And I mean, I don't judge anybody or blame anybody for not knowing my backstory, because I don't talk about it. It's not that big of a deal. I just race. But so I have big stuff coming out with him. And honestly, one thing I'll touch on is like, I feel like a lot of people in moto come from backgrounds where it's just like spoon fed and really easy, and everybody seems to be a brat and stuck up and crybabies. And like, one thing I will say is, man, like a lot of the stuff I see online, like every now and then somebody be like, oh, just like say something slick about my dad, you know what I mean? Just like little jabs. And one thing I'll say is like, for a regular person, right, looking at somebody else's, never judge someone for what they have to do to feed their family, you know what I mean? And like, oh yeah, I mean, he did go away, and you know, it is what it is, and he did what he did. But at the same time, if it wasn't for him and him doing everything he possibly could to get a better life for his kids, like, I wouldn't be here. My brothers wouldn't have anything. Like, it transpired into a bunch of stuff. And honestly, he blessed my whole family when it comes down to just like the places we are now. You know what I mean? I mean, we still have our struggles, but it's not all fun and games for everybody. You know what I mean? And everybody comes from somewhere. And, you know, without him, I wouldn't be here. And, you know, I think we wouldn't have anything right now. Like, I come from a place where people just don't make it out and don't make it have like, or
No, man,
it's hard to
that's, dude,
explain.
no,
It's
Jaleek,
just like,
that is awesome, man. And like I said,
yeah,
those who throw stones sometimes come from glass houses. You know what? Show me a perfect
no,
person and I'll show you a liar.
no, for sure. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, now is the perfect time to just kind of shed light on this stuff. Cause like, dude, I think a lot of people get so caught up in their own life, they don't realize how bad other people have it. And I'm not even saying I had it the worst. I'm just saying in general, like, it's, for me, making it from what I came from, I literally just I don't have it in me to like judge people. You know what I mean? So like, it's weird seeing other people judge. You know what I mean? That's all I'm kind of touching on right now.
No, man, I absolutely love it. Like I said, had I known your story, I probably would not have even been nearly as critical. I'm glad you're getting it out there. And I think that's something this sport in general particularly misses. We need to
Yeah.
tell our damn stories. Like, that's why people
Oh, no,
follow. That's why
for
people pay
sure.
attention.
Yeah.
So,
And that's one thing I wish I did when I was younger. But at the same time, it was a weird balance for me because I didn't want to be one of the kids that, you know, say their story, but just to get, you know, like the sympathy, you know what I mean? Like, to like, just like, I don't, not make excuses, but have people feel bad for him. You know what I mean? I never wanted
yeah,
that.
you don't want to be a
People to
victim.
know me just because of, you know, me as a rider and me having talent and being able to do, you know, great things on a dirt bike. And it's a weird balance to try to find a way to, you know, shed light on your own story, but also not feel like it's coming from a place where it's like, look at me, feel bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to play the victim because, I mean, we're in a sport
Yeah.
where you need to have bravado, strength, and you don't want people. Yeah, I totally get that. And then we got Coach Rob Beams here, and he's got some technical questions. So hit him with what you got here, Coach.
Well,
go for it.
No, first of all, Jaleek, I mean, I've seen you in Florida. I've seen you grow up in Florida, and your work ethic is second to none. You know, like you say, they didn't accidentally happen. So, you know, congratulations on your first win. It was very cool to watch. You kind of alluded to the fact that you got to that track and had never seen it before. For the sake of our listeners, how incredible, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I cannot even imagine going to some of these venues for the first time, especially last year as a rookie. We talk about it all the time. You know, you go to Minio's and you have Blowout Bob that keeps, you know, creating hooks in the corner and the track's always a little bit dry. Then you go to something like, you know, High Point where you were last week, where you got 42 of the fastest dudes in the world that you don't have Blowout Bob and the track shapes up. How difficult is it going all the way back to Supercross, all the way up to this most recent weekend at High Point? How hard is it to learn these tracks for the first time at a pro level track caliber?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most difficult things about our sport, to be honest with you, is how hard it is to get these tracks down, especially when you're going against, you know, the veterans or, you know, the sophomores, the juniors, all those. Like you get, I'd say a solid 10 minutes of practicing before you're supposed to lay down heaters, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'd say that's honestly the biggest part of our sport, and especially for me, because that's where I struggle the most. I feel like in practice, it always takes me the most time to come around. And that's why I was telling him is it just like everything came a lot easier that day, because usually, you know, it takes me a minute to get the tracks down, and then that creates a bad qualifying, bad gate pick, and then, you know, back of the pack starts. So yeah, I mean, it's super critical, really critical. I think Supercross this year really helped me with figuring out some of the tracks, you know, especially with the outdoors being a lot more, I guess, not as cutthroat when it comes down to coming up short and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say that was the biggest thing is just figuring out those deals, because usually I'm like P20 in practice, you know what I mean? And
Sure.
I haven't seen any of these tracks really. Even my rookie year, I was hurt with some hip issues. So really all these tracks are going to be new to me. So every track will be, you know, a challenge to me, I think, this year.
Well, I think after those results, we're going to go ahead and just say, you can just skip press days, go right into it. It seemed to work. So you totally ruined that.
Yeah. And it was funny because on the way there, I had extra miles, so I used them on a first class ticket. So now it's turned into I have to get first class every single round, or else it's just not the same, right? Can't do track walk, can't do none of that in first class.
You keep winning, you're going to be first class all the time. I wouldn't even sweat that.
Well, and not because we have the privilege of talking to Jaleek. I've used Jaleek. Jaleek, I'm up here in New Hampshire right now doing a 2-day performance camp. And, you know, I'm not a riding coach like Timmy or anybody else where, you know, I'm not going to argue whether you should have 2 fingers or 1 finger on the front brake. What I really try to focus on is taking the physiology and bringing it to I call it a moving gyroscope. You know, how many different ways the motorcycle move and create stability. And in my workshops and camps, I've always used you as an example since you went pro, because I've always been impressed that you've always been a good starter as an amateur, but to watch you carry that into Supercross, and I don't know the exact statistics, I'm not a statistician, but I would venture probably 95% of the time, you're one of the top 3 guys in the first turn, whether it be Supercross or outdoors. And then you did it again this past week. I say to my athletes, when are you going to realize how important it is to get those starts dialed? Because Jaleek Swoll, even in his rookie year, which, you know, I've been very fortunate. I've been doing this for 30 years. There's been a lot of athletes I've moved into the pro ranks, and they all say the same thing. It's the learning of the track and then being able to handle the pressure. And I've always been so impressed that you took that amateur ability to get good starts and you jumped right up there, as you called them earlier, the veterans, the sophomore year guys. And man, you didn't back down. I mean, you were elbows wide. You were flat sticking it in there with those guys. I just can't tell you how impressive that is. And then for you to back it up, not just have one good moto, you know, no disrespect to your teammate Styles, but you know, if you look at something like Daytona, you look at some of the races where he had really good starts and he stayed up there for a while. You get good starts and you stayed there. It just goes to show at the depth of the 250 class this year. You get a 15th place start, you're probably going to be 8 through 10. You get top 5, like you proved, especially in that second moto. Chris and I talked about it in our last show, how we think that you spooked Jet coming down that downhill into that right-hander, because all of a sudden he didn't anticipate somebody coming down the hill as aggressive as he did. Yeah, you know, Hunter's front wheel got cross-rutted, but Chris and I both believe that you were in that peripheral vision. He's like, holy cow, where'd Jaleek come from?
Yeah, he didn't expect you. He expected to get by you and then have you surrender the position, and you did no surrendering. You're like, no, I got this. But
then to come back in the second moto and back it up, I just hope the listeners understand, if there's an example of how powerful consistent starts are, you've proved it in Supercross, you've proved it outdoors. And then Chris and I were talking before you came on. I mean, we can't wait to watch this race weekend, because we know momentum carries momentum carries momentum. When during that race, like you said, you go out there, I think you said you got your best qualifying spot, second lap. On race weekend, when did you realize, okay, I know I can start with these guys. I've done it all year long. When did it click in your head, especially when you were battling with RJ? When did you realize I'm kind of controlling the narrative of this race, both first and second moto? When did it click?
Mm, Dude, it literally started from qualifying, because usually whatever I qualify, I like take away 10 positions, and that's usually where I'm at.
Okay.
So I don't know. It was just, when I came off the track or whatever, and he was like, "Oh yeah, P4 or P5, whatever it was." I knew it was gonna be a good day, because it felt like my riding, like, it didn't feel like I was tiring myself out or that I was really pushing for it. It was just coming really natural. And yeah, to touch on the start aspect of it, like, I think guys are seeing over and over again just how deep our class is, at least when it comes down to all of our skills matching up. It's like a lot of the guys who can be battling for top 5, if they don't get a good start, they're struggling to get into the top 10, top 8 category, and this is really crucial. And I know outdoors is a lot of time, but we're also close in time that, like, it's not really, you don't really have enough time to catch up to anybody, especially if you get that bad start.
Absolutely.
I'd say if you come out first lap around 15th through 12th, that's probably already realistically like a 10-second gap to first. So, and that's just off first lap, just off the carnage of everybody. So it's like, it's a really big deal. And, 10 seconds is a lot to make up, especially, on any pro rank, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I'd say I felt the best. I knew I had a good day coming in the first qualifying, and yeah, whole shots or, top 5 starts are pretty much everything right now.
Yeah. And then did you catch that earlier when he mentioned Styles? So does that mean when Styles has a win, we got to have him come on and talk back to Coach Rob after? Is that what we do now? Make him eat crow?
Nah, the coach has to write an article first.
Oh.
and then we can get on the podcast and go back and forth.
Well,
Okay.
it's a small little world, Jaleek, because I worked with Styles when he was on Cowie, and I was jumping up and down screaming at the television when he was out front there, and he got the start of his life. But it does validate, like you said, it's Styles obviously has the speed, you have the speed, RJ has the speed, and it's just as amazing. It's, you watch those guys, yourself included. It's like you say, where you start, you don't see somebody like going from 15th to the top 3. Like skills, the parity in the class is like second. It's as a fan, I'm still one of the biggest fans in the sport. To see that kind of parity, I have to go back to the days of Wardy and Bale and Stanton and all those guys. I know they're generations, but this is just, as a fan, it's probably one of the sweetest times to watch you guys. It's, hey, along that thread of thought, one of the things Chris and I talked about with Johnny Hopper while the race was going on, it seems like those Husqvarnas, between yourself and RJ, just nailing the starts. We don't seem to see the Blue Crew runaway. Has anything significantly changed with the bikes? And I don't want you to give away anything, that you can't talk about, but it doesn't seem like we have a drag race like last summer where we saw 3 blue bikes in the first turn. You guys are really handing, you're dishing it back to these blue bikes. Has there been any significant changes in the bike? You're just feeling more comfortable, more confident? Just curious what your thoughts are.
I think every team, no matter what manufacturer, I think they all try and get as much power and get the bike to as light as it can be and all that good stuff. Every day, regardless of what they're doing or placings or whatever. But yeah, there's literally nothing. I know the guys work hard out at Husky, and like I said, like shaving as much weight and getting as much power as the bike as they can get. But for the most part, I really feel like it's just been a reaction time thing, and also just starting to believe that you belong up there. I'd say confidence is like one of the biggest things in the sport. And I know it sounds like cliche because everybody says confidence, but it really does do wonders. Like after the first moto, like I went up to the gate completely calm and looked left to right, and nobody seemed to, I don't want to say scare me, because that's not like, I've never been scared of anyone, but it's just like, you just know that you have a shot, you know what I mean? And it's going to be a battle, and it just starts to become a little bit easier than, let's say, me at Paula after getting whatever 12th and falling and all that kind of stuff, just creates a lot of momentum and belief in yourself, and you really start to believe in everything that's going on. And I think that all transpires in the starts. Like motocross, it's a snowball effect. Like all it takes is a few good things to happen, and all of a sudden everything is better,
With that said, too, it takes brass balls to put it up front. There's a lot of guys that can get those good starts who don't have the courage to jump up there because they know they're going to have to run a pace that they might not be comfortable with. And dude, my hat's off to you. From day one, you've had zero fear doing that. You jump right up there and get into the action.
Well, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I say this with my clients all the time. There's a difference between confidence and accomplishment, because I can't measure confidence. It's very intangible, but I can quantify accomplishments. And I think that's what's so cool about your win is, I like to say this to Chris on every show. Lance Armstrong has a quote that says, "Momentum has changed zip codes." And I texted Johnny and Chris over the weekend, and I said, I believe sincerely that the momentum has shifted zip codes into Jaleek's, into his mailbox, because what I find so interesting is you've always been confident. You've never been cocky, but you've always been confident. And then start to back it up. You obviously, Loretta's, you did very well. You got the Husky ride. I think obviously you've got the contract that goes, amateur into pro. But when you see, and like you said, they're self-serving, they're very synergistic rather. Your confidence gets higher because you keep accomplishing more, but yet you keep accomplishing more. Like you said, you look to the left and the right, zero intimidation. You're a good starter. You know that you're fit enough. You've got the skill. You've got obviously the toolage underneath Timmy. And it's just so cool to watch all that come together. And I texted to Johnny and Chris, momentum has changed zip codes, because to watch you charge past, in battle with even your own teammate RJ, and then in the moto, getting a 5th place start and just freaking being in it and not being afraid, and then watching you manage it, which again, high five knuckle punch, to watch you manage that second moto where so many guys, they get, oh my goodness, I won that first moto, I got to do it again. Realize not necessary. That would just showed an incredible amount of maturity. And I think people forget. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you this year? You're quite young.
Just turned 20.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't even drink alcoholic champagne.
Nope. We're eating cookies after these races.
There you go. If you don't mind us asking, are you on the 2-year deal? Or is your contract up this year, or are you already renewed? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I signed my agreement for an additional 2 with Husky.
Sweet. And now will that begin in 2022 for 2 years?
Yeah, this will start in October, I think, around the same time like a Monster Cup would be.
So you're signed through 23. Perfect. And you deserve it, might I add.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Now, but not 2 years ago.
Hey, I'm on here. Like I said, I'm taking my whipping. I said it. I was wrong. I apologize directly to you, Jaleek, and I could not be happier to be wrong. So you got a hell of a story, and I'm glad. So
well, let me ask you, Jaleek, along the thread of that article. The thing that's confusing to us, and it has nothing to do with you. You have no dog in this fight. But when you look back over at the Troy Lee design teams, when Alex Martin bumped because of the amateurs coming up, and here you've got a guy second outdoors 3 consecutive years. The genesis of that article was more about, man, how does that happen? And it's not your fault. You don't, when you were coming through the amateur ranks, you didn't design these contracts. You didn't design the way you are. From your perspective, now that you've been through it, and again, high five knuckle punch, you survived the 2 years where a lot of these teams give you one chance and then you're clipped.
Yeah.
Knowing what you've been through, what would be your recommendation? How do you change the amateur program? How do you change that first 2 years? Do you recommend a 3-year where the first 2 literally is just to get your feet wet and then start becoming competitive the 3rd year? What's your perspective on that now that you've been through it all?
See, for me, I always thought that it was a little bit harsh to give all the rides to the veterans and guys that you thought could win, because there's a lot of guys coming through amateurs that I feel like they get their 1 year and then they're just shipped out and you never hear of them again. And it's kind of sad because, like everybody rides from like what the age of like 5 racing all the way up. And it's like with me, I mean, I didn't have the best rookie year. My outdoors, I was injured, didn't even get to do anything. And then Supercross, I had okay races, but it was nothing where you're like, oh, this guy's gonna get a podium his next year, or he's going to win an outdoor national. It was none of those. So like, it's a weird balance between having someone that you believe in from amateurs and you bring them up through pros while also having that veteran who can win. And it's weird. Like, I don't think there really is any way they can get like, I don't think there's a way to make it better. Like, there's just not enough rides. And I think a lot of the young guys kind of just take the bad end of the stick when it comes down to it, to be honest with you. I mean, like I know everybody likes winning, you know what I mean? So of course they're going to go out and try to get a veteran who they know who can win. But yeah, at the same time, that means that a lot of these young guys just don't get the shot that, they could have gotten. It's crazy to think that all the names that have gotten pushed out of the sport so quick, because who knows what they could have been, if they had a second chance.
Well, and that was kind of the point of my article. And it just so happened that like I said, you had a bad week that week and it was fresh in my mind. I was like, crap, this kid probably can be good in 3 years, but we're not going to know, because I thought they'd push you out. But props for keeping you on. But like, look at my guy right now that I'm talking about is Jarrett Fry. He's having a rough year. Is he going to get any more chances? I don't know. But that does, to me, 1 year does not judge the kid. And I just don't think it's fair. But life isn't fair, I guess, Coach.
Hey, Jaleek, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, and if you don't want to answer this question, it's totally cool. Like you said, being injured, hip injury, I don't think it's realistic for anybody to, like you said, be expected to be on the podium, much less get a win on their second year. Was Bobby Hewitt a large part of you being retained after that?
First year? Well, I had 2 years regardless, so I think I was pretty much safe. But I know Hewitt is he's pretty special in my career, because even amateurs, like he was the guy who brought me up. And he had the same amount of, like he's seen talent in me that he compared to like a Jason. Like, he stuck with Jason through all the ups and downs, and it paid off. They won a 450 class championship in Supercross together. Absolutely. And so he brought me up, and he made sure to fight for me every time any little thing went wrong or whatever. But luckily for me, like, my amateurs was all pretty smooth sailing, so I didn't really have any issues until like my rookie year or whatever. But he trusted in me, and he just reminded everybody in Husky, like, give him time, everything will fall into place. He was a big person when it came down to he would always give me a saying. I just don't remember how it went, but it was something along the lines of, you can't buy time. So he always fought for me. And then, I mean, also Scuba, our team manager now, Steve Westfall, and both of those guys, hand in hand, they believed in me and made sure, like, any little thing I needed, I had, and they fought tooth and nail for me to be in the position I am now. And like, I could never repay those guys enough. But like, I love those two guys for sure. And without those two, I wouldn't be here.
Jaleek, man,
I'm so glad to hear that. When Bobby owned the Suzuki amateur program, I was working with Ian Treadle and obviously Jason Anderson. There was always something unique about Bobby, and I've kept in touch with Bobby a little bit at the races. And I remember being at Daytona Amateur Day, watching you race, and I was standing next to Bobby, and we were just shooting the bull a little bit. And came across to me was it was as if his son was on the track. There was such a level of attention, and I'll never forget that. And that's just typical Bobby Hewitt. For the listeners that have never met Bobby Hewitt, like you said,
Yeah.
he's Jason Anderson, his loyalty to yourself. What a special man. I hope he's able to get back into the sport because we miss him. We need him. And Bobby's a great businessman. Whatever he comes back, he'll do well. But it was just cool. And Chris had put on his Instagram account, congratulating you, especially on Father's Day. And my only comment was Bobby Hewitt should be proud because I just will never forget having that conversation with Bobby, standing in the stands watching you. And it was just, there was such an incredible smile on his face. He was so proud, and I'll never forget that. So,
yeah, and that's just like a great description of him as a whole. I feel like he was like that with a lot of his guys. He always fought for Dean, Jason, Davlos when he was around, just everybody. He was a team manager that never just, took a higher ups, call and just went with it and just clipped somebody. Like he always fought and he always believed in the time deal too. I mean, same with Zach. He also had the same deal with Zach, brought Zach up. So
yeah,
like Bobby, there's no doubt about it. Like he knows talent when he sees it, and he knows to just let it ride out. And I think a lot of teams and managers and stuff can kind of take notes in that kind of department. I feel like everybody just kind of takes that first call and gets rid of people, so
Yes, I totally agree. We need more of that in the sport.
Yeah, exactly. I think guys they get too caught up in just seeing that guy who wins and they want to buy him instead of building,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jaleek, man, I told you we'd keep you for 20, 30 minutes. We're right at the end of 30 minutes. I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I love that you remember that. And I love that you called me out on it. And hey, like I said, I could not be happier to eat crow and be dead wrong. I appreciate it, man. So thank you. Anything else you want to get off? Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we touched on everything, but yeah, no, I think next time we'll get the like the whole face deal figured out. But yeah, no, I think it's funny. I think it's good. It's good banner back and forth. I think people like to see that kind of stuff. I think Moto has kind of gone a little dry in personality and stuff like that. And in my eyes, I feel like, I don't know how you guys feel, but
we feel the same way.
More of this kind of stuff. And I don't know, I think it's good for the sport, trying to evolve it a little bit. I see like a lot of the comments and stuff, like, because I mean, I like to be well spoken, but at the same time, I talk to everybody as if I'm just talking to like my friend. So anytime people hear a few cuss words here and there, they want to cry about it in the comments. So I think it's funny to just kind of get back into that's my dog. But,
nice.
Just trying to get back into a sport, dude.
The dog's barking to Jaleek's comment. What a great way to just put a stamp on the end of the conversation. Excellent job. Thanks so much.
Jaleek, you're the man. We'll be cheering for you next week. So.
Oh yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Peace, brother.
Have a good evening.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
What a badass dude. I love it. I love the fact that he had balls enough. I mean, this just shows his personality. First off, he's got balls enough to get the whole shot. Second off, he's got balls enough to remember the media guy who put him as the poster child for bumping veterans out and not deserving their ride. And then when I complimented him, he said, "Thanks, I appreciate it, but I remember your article." I was like, "Oh," because I forgot about it. Really honest. And I didn't know his story about his dad. And I felt like him and I have a connection. Both our dads sold drugs to keep us racing. It is what it is. But hey, I love it. And I couldn't be happier to be wrong. The sport needs more people like Jaleek. Go ahead.
Well, the big thing that I want the listeners to pay attention to is Jaleek had an article written about him. He didn't come on here F-bombing you, calling you a dickhead, saying this, saying that. Hey, Jaleek, look at how amicable the conversation was. He was able to, again, he called you out diplomatically, didn't call you pinhead, dickhead, all the other things that we hear, right? He's like, hey, I proved you wrong, wink, wink. Shows you his maturity, shows you the thickness of his skin. He can toss the bomb back. Obviously, he didn't agree with the article, which is awesome. If that gave him fodder for his fire to go out there and say, F you, Chris, I'm going to prove you wrong. hey, he collected a very big check because he proved you wrong, and props to him. And I'm happy for him. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
all, there's listeners, there's some people listening to us right now that maybe they were told by their dad that they're never going to amount to anything. And that's what motivates you. Maybe you were told, you know, you're never going to be an athlete. That motivate, whatever it is, we don't know. I was a fat kid up to 8th grade. You know what I mean? I come from a very big family. So I was always the short little fat kid that was the youngest in the family, and I got picked on incessantly. Hey, but that became my motivation. And like you're saying, I'm impressed with Jaleek, especially in this day and age at 20 years old. He doesn't blackball you. He doesn't unfriend you. He doesn't unfollow you, all this social media BS. What did he do? He reached out and said, thanks, but I remember your article. And then what did you do? Hey, do you want to come on and talk about it? And there was an actual
First off, I felt like a complete asshole because I forgot that I wrote that article. And that just kind of shows you what I was thinking when I wrote the article. Like you said, it was more about the system. And he happened to be the guy at the point because he was having trouble when I wrote that article. He hadn't qualified, and it looked like he probably wasn't going to last as a pro. And I was bummed because they put that many years into him as an amateur, and I thought he was going to get clipped. Meanwhile, he's part of Hewitt's guys, so they got him to stay. But he read it as, you know, from his point of view. And I do remember looking at it and going, and I wish it was still up there. It was on part of Cooksey Media that got clipped when I had my issues with Western power sports and all that. So the article no longer exists. I tried to find it. I could not find any copies of it, but it would have been great to find it. But clearly Jaleek remembered it. And yeah, I used him as the poster boy. Boy, was I wrong.
Well, but it's okay to be wrong
It
because
is.
you know it's okay to be wrong, and he proved us wrong. Good on him. But the difference is he maturely reached out, an adult banter via text, followed up. He said he would try to come on if he could. He was able to do it. He would, you know, he held up his end of the deal, you know. And hey, like you said, he's sound like he was in the car going from point A to point B. He squeezed us in, and we're appreciative of that. But I sure hope that the listeners understand getting butt hurt over something doesn't change anything. Prove the media wrong, whether it be us or anybody else. Again, we're never ever out on a witch hunt. Stay, you know, and I think Jaleek, when you look at the bigger picture, the article was about the system. He understands that. He even gave his perspective. Hey, I think some of the younger guys, they need to be able to bump the veterans. That's cool. Hey, listen to young riders. Listen to Jaleek. He gave us his perspective without saying that we're idiots. He's right. He didn't say he's wrong and we're right. He just gave an adult conversation about, I believe that there's some young guys that could come up and beat the veterans. Cool. He's one of them.
And here's why.
That's right. He's one of them. And then he proved it. That's props. But in all fairness, how many people have we seen do it? Not very many. I don't know the actual the statistics associated with it. How many guys have won within the first 2 years? I'm sure there's some vault out there that's got the information. I'm not interested.
Well, and I'll just say this: that article that I wrote, I probably could have picked 4 other guys and been dead right. I just happened to pick Jaleek.
Yeah.
Like I said, and the odds were on my side that I was going to pick somebody who wasn't going to make it, but I picked Jaleek.
But look at what Jaleek has said. There's a multitude of guys that got clipped the 1st year because they didn't, produce in the very first year. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know if this is Bobby Hewitt. I don't know who Jaleek's agent is, but here's the point. How smart was that to get a 2-year deal as pro? Because usually it's 2 years amateur, 1 year pro if you get a 3-year deal.
Which is insane.
Pardon me?
Which is insane to me.
It is. And it goes back because I've heard it from all my riders that have gone pro, just learning that track with, like he said, in a 10-minute window, and you're supposed to go lay it down. And I was glad to hear Jaleek say it because I've heard it from athletes for years now, how difficult it is. Good as he is, how difficult is it? Like he said, he's just not the guy that can dial a track in 10 minutes. But the idea that his contract allowed him to have 2 years to go shake the bushes out and figure it all out, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with his agent / him, whoever Bobby Hewitt may be.
So what I'm going to do is, you got to go. You're in Vermont with, so what we're going to do is we're going to move right into the fitness tip. And what I want to ask you is, so if I race High Point, boom, I've got 2 weeks as a racer. What's my ideal schedule to recover and get back to training before the next race in the middle of the summer? That's a tough one. Because I mean, what do you do? Do you rest on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday? What do you do?
Well, there's a couple of ways that you can look at it. The answer is yes. Recovery. We're on today is stage 2 of the Tour de France. You look at yesterday, 200-kilometer race. there was 3 or 4 wrecks. A lot of guys hit the ground. Well, think about it. Those guys only have about 12 hours to recover to get back on the bike tomorrow. So no matter what sport you like, it's always about recovery. A lot of it hinges off of the athlete themselves. What we use is the Garmin platform, and we look at body battery, we look at resting heart rate, we look at strain scores, we look at sleep cycles. I'm not going to bore the listeners and all that, but to your point, you've got to just focus on recovery. We say this with all of our athletes. From high point, where's our next round this upcoming weekend?
Redbud.
Okay, thank you. I don't know why I can't remember that considering it's July 4th. Duh, Rob. Grade there. But no, seriously, when you've got a 2-week window like that, for some riders, they could need 4 days recovery. Some can get back to 2 days. But when I say get back to it, they're not going where they just go wide open again. They'll do mainly aerobic based type intensities. They'll kind of rev the engine back up, maybe 1 or 2 days over a 7-day period. This is why I like the GNCC side of things, because think about it, they're racing every 2 weeks. So you race on Sunday, you recover to Wednesday, you do a 7-day taper Wednesday to Wednesday, and then you do, or excuse me, a 7-day training block and then a 3-day taper to race again on Sunday. So it's perfect. And I wish Supercross, motocross would go that way, because I think you'd see less attrition. I think you'd see less burnout. You'd see less sickness. But to answer your question, it is completely individualized, because as soon as you're done with that last moto of the day, the clock begins in recovery. The whole process starts. And so the sooner you can take advantage of it, it's a real sophisticated title. It's called the glycogen synthase enzyme. You have a very tight window of time to replenish depleted sugar when you come off that track. But remember, you're talking about finishing on Saturday and being ready in 14 days. It literally starts the moment they come off the track. Then we look into how much sleep can they get, quality and quantity. We look at their food, making sure there's not a calorie gap, make sure they don't become dehydrated by looking at sweat rate calculators. You put all that together, then you can slowly ramp them up. We say this in our business all the time. When you're in the midst of a race season, the way these guys are, you're not going to gain any fitness, but you can certainly lose what you've got. To your point, if you start going into fear mode and you start just hammering during the week and not allowing recovery, you end up being the guy that's really a good trainer but a flat racer, all because you're working in a mode of fear.
So I've seen some guys where they'll race on Saturday, they're sore, they get on the bike and just do a quick moto or two to try and loosen everything up. What do you think about that?
Well, there's actually 2 different ways you describe that. Getting on the motorcycle and loosening up, if you're just going to work turns or have fun, acting like you're in a photo shoot and you're taking structure away, brilliant. And it's just like the Tour de France. Even on a day off, the guys still ride the bikes, because movement creates relaxation, energy creates energy. So you don't, like with my clients, we have 1 day a week, no exercise whatsoever. And on a 6-week training block, the 6th week is always rest and recovery. We do something for 30 to 40 minutes at a low intensity, because this gets beyond the scope of our conversation, but you got to reestablish blood chemistry, and you can only do that through rest days. So, but to your point, getting out on the motorcycle, as long as you take the structure away, wear the heart rate monitor, keep the intensity low, the body will definitely rebound quicker, for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny too. I talked to Tyler Keefe, the team manager for TLD, and we were talking about play riding. I said, guys don't need to do enough of it. And he's like, man, as a team manager, that's tough. I know how important it is skill wise, but go try explaining that to the big bosses, how this guy just got hurt play riding.
Stephen Hill, Josh Hill.
Yes. But look, there's some of the most talented riders out there, and they do those things. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword. I get it, but I also see where they're both coming from. So Coach, I'm going to cut it short today because I know you got to get going. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, I mean, just props to Jaleek. Thank you for coming on. Like I said, thanks for calling you out. Thanks for engaging in adult conversation. Thanks for coming on and talking to our listeners. I hope the listeners know, we try hard. We want to bring cool guys on the show like this, whether it's some of our Moto E riders, whether it's pros, whatever's going on, we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna answer why. So no, I'm very, very thankful that Jaleek gave us the time and an awesome job putting it together.
And I love it too, because like I said, I'm not always right. I share my honest opinion, and I'll listen if somebody's got new information, and I will change my mind if I get some new information. I am not set in my opinions forever. And in fact, my Instagram post the other day, and I've rethought my Roxon impression from last week when I said he settled. I rewatched that after a whole bunch of people got on me and said I was in left field. I think I was. I don't think he has a history of kind of settling, but that's Supercross. And I watched that second moto. I don't think he settled. He rode his ass off. I forgot he came from as far back as he did before he caught Dylan. So, but yeah, like I said, I have no problem changing my opinion with new information. And if you can bring it to light in a decent way, if you just call me a moron, I'm going to go ahead and delete it. But if you just tell me your opinion, and yeah, you know what? They won me over. So anyway, hey, well, go ahead, coach.
Thought for those that are watching this on YouTube, let's get into a fun conversation. You don't have to kiss my butt. You don't have to agree with me, but don't get into just slinging, because again, I'm not going to engage with you when you get into name calling and acting like a fifth grader. But if you disagree with something, I'm totally cool with that. We've had a couple of dialogues with some people on the comments where I was giving my opinion about, whether it was, I think it was on Hopper's video about parts, and it was like, oh, it never happens. And I've talked to people that have been on factory teams that it has happened. And we saw some text messages from some people behind the scenes that said, absolutely, it's happening. Can we share those? No, because people will sue us. I mean, my point is this, please engage with us. Let us know what your thoughts are. I like to engage with the YouTube comments. Again, I don't think that I'm right. I'm not saying that you're wrong. All I'm saying is let's have an adult conversation. And hey, here's a novel idea for all of our listeners. And thank you for hanging out with us. How about we be the group of people that, instead of getting into name calling and finger pointing and cancer culture, why don't we change everything to say, hey, let's have some adult, I keep using that, maybe I've overused it tonight, I apologize, but I would love to see some fun, not so much fun, but fun. I mean, I love talking to people that see things different than me. Because I want to learn. I don't ever declare that I know everything, but I want to learn. But I'm not going to, if you're just going to yell at me, call me names and tell me I'm an idiot and my opinion is stupid, conversation is pretty much over.
Exactly. But if you want to tell me why just tell me why I'm wrong and what facts, like somebody, I forget who it was that posted it, and I feel bad, I should have looked it up before, who told me and broke it down, like the laps and how far he had moved up. I was like, oh dang, you know what? I forgot about that. That's the type of stuff. Listen, I do my best with my opinions to know what I know, but I don't, like you said, I don't know everything. And if you see something, that's how I learn. I look at other things and I'm willing to listen.
But if our comments below our videos can be an environment where people can come and feel like they can, let's call it bench race together, hell yes, bring it. Let's do it. Let's get 1,500 comments going. And let's do it per video basis based on what we're talking about, instead of some endless thread that just goes on and on and on and on and gets lost. Let's have some cool conversation, because I loved the one, the guy's like, look, do you realize he came from 10th place all the way up to 3rd? I read that and I was like, well, shit, I honestly forgot about that.
Same here. I totally forgot. I was like, dang, you know what? It was a bias, like a recency bias, because of what I saw in Supercross. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And like I said, I even edited my Instagram. I said, you know what? I stand corrected.
Well, so, and look at just that right there. What we were really talking about at the 10,000 foot view is, what have we seen with Roczen historically? We get one of those hot races, it kind of starts to hit his immune system, he goes backwards. All we were saying was, it wasn't the RCH domination that we'd seen in the first 2 rounds. That's all we were saying.
Yes.
But yeah, that was my perspective. That was your perspective. That was where the conversation went, and they brought a new perspective. I was ecstatic. I'm like, this is kick ass.
I love it.
We were wrong. It wasn't that they were right. It wasn't that they were wrong and we were right. It was, hey guys, let's change our perspective. Hey, did you think about this? Did you think, oh shit, they're right. Cool. Yeah. Good job. Thank you. And yeah. I hope that this podcast becomes the environment where we don't get a bunch of, kids behind the keyboard that think they're badasses. Let's come out from underneath the keyboard. Let's be honest and authentic. And by the way, your fake accounts, we're going to continue to delete them, guys. Don't think we're stupid. We're going to delete the fake accounts.
If you created it an hour before you called me a moron, I'm just going to delete it. So
we're just going to delete it, not because we don't have thick skin. It's not worth the time. But I think if someone's listened to this point, they don't have a fake account and they're legitimately want to bench race with us. Let's do it.
And I recognize a lot of the guys who recomment, and I really appreciate it. And if you really like, just so you know, if you make a comment, I get to those in the evenings when I'm done with work and I just chill out, I'll jump on there. You're probably not going to get me on those comments during the daytime. I do have a day job, but in the evenings, I'll absolutely jump on there. And if you want to interact with me, that's usually when I do it. So, and I love to get in there and just, like I said, have a conversation where we discuss. So anyway, well, I want to thank our sponsors. Energy Fuel keeps me hydrated. This stuff's it's so good, Coach. I love it. It is probably the best supplement that I've used in recent memory. Yeah. And EBC brakes, clutches, brake pads, you name it. They have it. Decor visuals, any graphics, seat covers, you need it. Danny and the guys over there can do custom. They have some kits ready to go. You know it, they got it. And then our media partner, 2-4 Speed, Troy and Isaac over there just crushing it, bringing anything racing, NASCAR. They got Taylor over there doing some video stuff with them. Did you see those videos with Taylor Hyman?
Unbelievable. They're killing it.
Yeah, good stuff. And I love that they're kind of that next generation. And it's funny when people are kind of coming down on us for being a little bit controversial. Troy was like, "What? No, this is literally what media is." But if you look at he's like, if you look at the other sports, like we're soft compared to most sports, but it's changing.
Get into the subject about media being soft to support the narrative. Let's just leave that alone.
Okay, fair enough. So, all right, Coach.
Yeah.
Yo, get back to your vacation, man. Film some videos. Have fun out there in Vermont. I guess it's not a vacation since you're working, but hey.
Yep. We'll be at Winchester Monday and Tuesday. Fly back Wednesday. We're home for 4 days, and then we fly out to California for Whiskey Throttle. So it's gonna be good. Yep. Going back out there. Ping and I are doing it's what we call coaches segments, a new piece on Whiskey Throttle. So we're Michaela and I are gonna go out there for 2 weeks and get those shot. So it'll be good.
Can you mention Cooksey and the Coach in there somewhere? I'm always like, come on, just mention the show one time on there. I'm a big Whiskey Throttle fan. Just mention Cooksey and the Coach. So
absolutely. We'll do it.
Okay. All right, Coach. Take it easy, my man.
Pleasure. Thanks, man.